Hello, good day to you. It's Andy and this is Thailand News. Today's story, we're going to have a little chat about my most asked question. Can I go to Thailand now? The problem is that there are so many people out there, vloggers, people that think they know about it. They're all making videos, writing articles, including the mainstream media. They're writing articles every day saying, yes, you can go to Thailand, go in October, go in November, go in blah, blah, blah. The problem is with all of this is that there is no definitive answer. You have to make assumptions, which you shouldn't have to. The issue is the Thai government want to open up their borders because it means that tourism, which is the biggest sort of aspect of money coming into the country at the moment, is practically zero. A lot of people have lost their jobs, a lot of places have closed. It's being sustained by, well, holding on by the last straw. A lot of places will close if tourism does not come back very soon. The latest news on some of the mainstream media websites, which obviously we have to take with a pinch of salt, a lot of people making videos as well on YouTube, saying that they know exactly what's going on, when quite clearly not even the Thai government know what's going on, to be fair, not being rude. I don't think there's any much planning going on, because somebody makes a decision and then somebody else countermands. Problem is, as far as I see it, is the whole COVID virus thing, which, to be fair, there are lots of things that I want to talk about, but unfortunately there are two camps. There's two opposing camps when you discuss the virus. There's camp number one that believe everything that they're told is going on. The government, the mainstream media, they believe all of the stats, the number of deaths, the number of cases, the number of whatever, and all of that goes with it. Then there is camp number two, which is the people that have seen through and done their own logical thinking research, and they are the ones that have said that they don't believe any of it, because the stats, the scientific data, does not support what we're being told. Whichever camp you're in, we're not here to discuss that. What we are saying is that Thailand, as a country, have done really well. I mean, we're talking about allegedly they've had 58 deaths in total, but we don't know if those deaths are actually from COVID. They could be with COVID, because there is a big difference between the two, and this is why most of the stats that we hear about are unbelievable from any country. It doesn't matter which country it is. And this is also why the various governments have backtracked and reduced the numbers of deaths. Because let's face it, in the UK, you could die of COVID even if you got run over from a bus a month later or a year later. I mean, the problem is that when you start talking about any of this, you are in dodgy ground, because a lot of people are either vehemently against or they're vehemently for believing the information that they're given. And I've had many discussions with various people who I would call are deniers. They deny that this whole thing is blown up and exaggerated, and actually, if you look at the data, it was over back in May, June time. July was on the way out. When you look at the number of deaths, and I'm talking about the UK here specifically, I know it's different in America and Australia.
Europe versus USA. So a lot of people asking about USA, and it is tough over there because while Europe is long finished with the epidemic, USA got a second kind of surge, and a lot of people are misunderstanding this. They think it's a second wave. It's not a second wave. So USA, if it was only Northeast USA you were looking at, which is seasonally, regionally like Europe, you see this in the data. It behaves just like Europe, and it's falling off or fallen off to nothing. However, this part of the curve is southern USA, and that's what's driving the extended hump. And this is the classic double hump we've seen for all prior influenza epidemics. This is actually normal, even though all deaths are sad. It is fading, coming down now, which is good news. So a little more detail. I pulled the data from the US database, and I'm going to use the same scale here of deaths per million, up to 70. And here's Northeast. New York got hit really hard, of course, but the Northeast US, you've got the Gompertz type curve like Northern Europe. And that's because it's Northern tempered type pattern, Europe-like. When we look at the South, it's very different. Not only is it surging out here, right, in a different time frame, but overall the impact in deaths per million daily is massively lower than the Northeast, because these are the same scale. So this is Northern tropical type pattern, and it's more like Mexico and desert regions.
Certainly I do feel sorry for my Australian viewers who are suffering with quite severe lockdown.
Look, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad tidings, but there is rubbish everywhere. Let's start with this.
You guys are doing this. Yeah, you can show me your search warrant before you go through my house.
You're the occupier or tenant? Yeah, I own this house.
There it is. There's a search warrant.
Search warrant for what?
Now, what I will explain to you is if you want to listen, you got your phone going.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Right. Now, you're under arrest in relation to incitement.
The only person guilty of incitement is the Premier of Victoria. In his outlandish grab for power, his disdain of any accountability is forcing people to behaviour simply designed to take back their freedom.
Really getting away from talking about all of that, which I can't really do because it is involved with Thailand news. Because Thailand, I believe, every time there is a case, and it's a case, it's not actually somebody who has got it. It could be because they do a test, and they're using PCR tests.
They're misappropriating, as we said previously, the language. They're saying cases there. Those aren't cases. Those are positive PCR tests mostly, and a positive PCR test does not equate a case of COVID-19. This has already been proven. New York Times already published a very good piece explaining why this is being misread in the United States. We'll get more on that later.
Well, let's look at it right now, because here is there's your cases, as we mentioned. Let's look at the patients in hospital, because of course this gives a better idea perhaps of how many of those positive results actually turn into genuine cases. Well, as you can see there, this is the UK total on screen. Well, let's draw a line that hits the peak from yesterday. This is yesterday's statistic. And really, it doesn't look like there's any growth in the number of cases, infection, actual problems, COVID-19, real cases,
complications,
as opposed to positive results.
Getting sick, basically, right?
Since mid-July there. So since mid-July, it hasn't really changed very much.
Thailand government are relying on those tests to determine if you are infected or not. And if you're infected, then there's no way that you're going to get into the country. And if you are there, obviously, then you're going to be quarantined. The issue is that every time there is a case that comes up, they go into panic mode, and of course then all the plans are changed. For example, they were going to let people in August, and then somebody had a case of it. it turned out that they were infected, but it was only one. And unfortunately, they had been spreading it slightly. But again, we're on dodgy ground with believing and accepting what we're told, because we have no way of confirming any of the alleged cases or the alleged people infected. We got no way of knowing for sure, because I mean, it's not just specifically the Thailand government, it's every government. They are playing a game here, and again we're on that subject, so it's very difficult to avoid it. I don't really want to go down that route. So of course, every time they go to open up the border and allow people back in, they get a case and then they say, "Oh my God, we're all gonna die. We'll close it." Certainly, the latest plan is this one, which was released on September the 15th. This was the article, and it says reopening for long stay tourists, 90-day visa. They've obviously decided that they're going to try it. The Prime Minister announced it. This new visa will be the first stage of opening up. This is for long stay tourists who agreed to stay at least 90 days. Problem is, I can't stay for more than 1 month, so it doesn't really apply to me. They will have to do everything that they have to do as mentioned in my other video. So they will have to have the a booking for a hotel or private accommodation, so you can have your own house or your own rented accommodation. But you also have to do the ASQ, the approved hotel, for 14 days, the quarantine, upon arrival. And then of course you're granted free movement. During that time, in the 14 days, you're tested twice. I'm presuming that these are the PCR tests, but I don't know for sure. The most important condition would be a 14-day quarantine, which is the same as the other system that they had. They've already announced it, that if you want to go and you are in a list of several groups, so for example, spouse, family member, elite visa I think is on that list as well. So if you've got the elite visa, or if you're a diplomat, for example, then you can actually apply to go there now. But again, you have to stay at one of the ASQ hotels, and this is at your expense, your own expense. The Bangkok hotels are from 28,000 Thai baht, which for 2 weeks living on your own in Bangkok is a fair amount of money. It does include 3 meals a day and free Wi-Fi. So there are that, but there are transfer fees if you go. There's a nurse on call, and you will have your temperature checked 2 times a day. Package includes 2 COVID tests, which obviously they do. And if you have a fever, then you will be sent to hospital. It does not include consultation costs with doctors, transportation costs other than airport pickup. So when you go anywhere, you will be restricted to the hotel. And of course, once you've passed that, bearing in mind that you first of all have to have a COVID test anyway, and it has to be done within 72 hours of your departure from the UK or other country, plus lots of other documentation that you have to provide before you go. Since the 13th of August, they've added some more alternative hotels, and interestingly, they're in Phuket, Pattaya and Buriram. So just taking a look at the one in Pattaya, which is probably the one that I would like. However, the problem is it's 39,000 baht for a deluxe standard room. If you want anything else, then, you know, I mean, 42,000 is over £1,000 you're paying in UK price. And of course, it's all the usual things that you would get. So the SARS test, I presume that's PCR test, which, as we know from earlier this video, is highly unreliable. The rest of it there, and of course they charge you for going from airport Svanapum, and they're charging 2,000 baht per person. So if you get to Utapao airport, it's free. Obviously you need to be able to fly there. I presume they're not going to let you fly from Svanapum, because otherwise you'll be spreading it. I'd be very surprised if they allow that. It's all well and good, you know, they're going to have this new visa if you can stay in the country for 90 days and you've gone through all the other stuff that you've been told now. You've done your quarantine and your paperwork, and you've got your COVID test before you go. You have your 2 tests while you're there, and then you're free to go. However, what they're not telling you in most of the other articles, and it came out a few days later. Oh, and by the way, interestingly enough, if you are coming from the UK, or you're going to the UK rather, and you're going there from Thailand, the Foreign Office has said that you don't have to quarantine on the way back. So it's a good news for travellers from Thailand. The fly in the ointment of all of this wonderful plan came out a couple of days later, after the Prime Minister announced this wonderful plan to open up tourism again in a limited way, because obviously there would be a limited number of flights and people. The detail of it is this. So the new Thai tourist visa is restricted to charter flights and private jets. That was announced on September the 18th, which was in fact yesterday. Hopes that the latest long-term visa plan will allow general tourists have been dashed by the Tourism and Sports Minister. He clarified that Thai embassies abroad will only issue the special visa to foreigners who are travelling either by charter plane or by private jet. It has been assumed by many, wrongly as it turns out, that a new special tourist visa, which allows a stay of between 3 and 9 months, could be used for entrance to slip into the country on a repatriation flight. Ordinary scheduled flights are still banned. And it says here, during the first stage, charter flights will be limited to 3 flights a week, with a maximum of 100 passengers on board each plane. So that's a lot less than we first heard, which was 1,200. That means it's only 300 a week. and it refers to private jets, and of course meaning the super rich in this context, but they will still need to pay for the 14-day quarantine. Oh, and the other thing that you need, but is pretty much irrelevant, is the $100,000 medical insurance. But to be fair, if you've got travel insurance, it's usually 1, 2 or 5 million. Just make sure that your medical insurance does have COVID on it, because they don't all have it. So I think that this is partly driven by the need to open up tourism, but the desire that every time they get a COVID result, that they panic. As panic mode goes into place, and they do a complete U-turn in how they feel about letting people in. There is a lot of talk about when that they're going to change their minds, and again, nobody knows. So the answer, can I go to Thailand now, is yes, you can. However, you may well find that unless you're part of a group of people that I've already mentioned, that you're going to find it very difficult. And if you're there, I would stay there, because even though you can come back here to no quarantine, I think, why would you want to come back here? Because you won't get back into Thailand. I hope that's helped to some degree. It's not a good outcome, put it that way, for anybody, including me, because I should have been there in August, and it's now nearly October. I think I've covered everything in this video. If there's any comments down below, then feel free to do so. I'm sure that there are people out there that know what's going on. Have a good day, and bye for now.